We're 1 hour and a half.
Let me know if you see me. Set this up, Robin. Excuse me, Bob. Are you ready? Robin. Set this up. On the yesterday.
Yes.
You gotta set this up.
Yes, Judy.
It's too high. You can crank the thing down. You can crank it down. Oh, introduce me? Shh. You've got to tighten the handle. The handle that you're holding, you're going to screw it tight. Check the sound. Leave it open. Are we good to go? Now? 1, 2.
Yes.
We'd like to welcome all of you to the worldwide Meher Baba family meeting, direct live from Meherabad, India. We apologize. We had some trouble starting, and unfortunately we're starting late right now. It's extremely busy in this area, and our Wi-Fi was not working, our landline Wi-Fi. So we tried the remote Geo, and it seems to be working. That seems to be working fine. We are 5 minutes down the hill from Meher Baba's Samadhi. Meher Baba is the avatar of the age, and it is the most sacred place on earth, a pilgrimage. Baba's message of love and truth we are wanting to bring to you on YouTube of his message of love and truth to the world. Each week we try and have, or twice a month now, we try and have a guest or someone who has met Meher Baba or someone to share their Baba stories. Today, it's my story, which is interesting because I've been with Meher Baba a little over 50 years now, and in all those years, I've maybe told the story less than a handful of times. I've told bits and pieces over the years, very little, because I don't tell my story much. It's such a precious experience for me. But today, we picked today for me to tell my story. Before we do, we always like to begin with Meher Baba has come to bring all religion together, he says, like beads on a string. And he has dictated a prayer called the Master's Prayer, which is all the names that the people around the world call God. So it's inclusive of all religions. We like to start our Baba meeting with the Master's Prayer. So that's what we'll do right now. Robin, you want to put it towards Baba?
If I can move it here.
O Parvardigar, the preserver and protector of all, you are without beginning and without end, non-dual, beyond comparison, and none can measure you. You are without color, without expression, without form, and without attributes. You are unlimited and unfathomable, beyond imagination and conception, eternal and imperishable. You are indivisible, and none can see you but with eyes divine. You always were, you always are, and you always will be. You are everywhere. You are in everything. And you are also beyond everywhere and beyond everything. You are in the firmament and in the depths. You are manifest and unmanifest on all planes and beyond all planes. You are in the three worlds and also beyond the three worlds. You are imperceptible and independent. You are the Creator, the Lord of Lords, the knower of all minds and hearts. You are omnipotent and omnipresent. You are knowledge infinite, power infinite, and bliss infinite. You are the ocean of knowledge, all-knowing, infinitely knowing, the knower of the past, the present, and the future, and you are knowledge itself. You are all-merciful and eternally benevolent. You are the soul of souls, the one with infinite attributes. You are the Trinity of truth, knowledge, and bliss. You are the source of truth, the ocean of love. You are the ancient one, the highest of the high. You are Prabhu and Parmeshwar. You are the beyond God and the beyond God also. You are Parabrahma, Allah, Ilahi, Yezdan, Ahura Mazda, and God the Beloved. You are Yehizad, the only one worthy of worship.
Avatar
Meher Baba Ki Jai. Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai. Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai. Thank you. You need to be there, and I need to go.
Robin won't be there.
Okay.
Should it be down a little bit more, Robin? And over a little
No,
bit?
it's okay.
It should be centered.
There.
Okay. So my story is coming not so much from notes because it was decided yesterday that I would share my story. So I reviewed some of it in my mind. So it's going to be from my memory that I tell my journey with Baba. We all start in our childhood. We have different experiences. Mine, I was born in Hollywood, California, and I went back and forth between Southern California and the country of Colorado during my growing up years. When I was in Colorado, my grandmother would have me go to a Catholic school. And when I was in California, I would just go to a public school. I would go back and forth. And when I'd go to a public school, but I would go to church with my grandmother. About the time I was 11 or 12, for some unknown reason, I just stopped going. I never thought about it. I just had no interest in it. But I remember ever since a child, I had an unbelievable passion for Jesus. And whenever around Easter time they would have on TV, they'd have the stories of him. And I would long to see them. But I had no interest in the church. When I started college, after my first year of college, I worked at Disneyland for the summer. It was full of college students. Then I went back to school, and I was not ready. I was very immature for my age. I decided I wanted to have fun. And so I started going to nightclubs, and I wasn't old enough, so of course we had to sneak in when we would do things how we could. Then I heard that the Playboy Club in Hollywood was going to open, they were going to open a new Playboy Club in Hollywood. And so they were interviewing for Playboy bunnies. Well, I didn't know much about that, but that sounded like a lot of fun. So I went for the interview, and yes, I was hired. But I was only 20. You have to, in California, you have to be 21 in order to serve alcohol. So they told me that I can, in Chicago, in Illinois, you're allowed to serve at 18. You can't drink it until you're 21, which doesn't make much sense, but you can serve it at 18. And since I was 20, they said, well, go ahead and you can go there. And they have a place for everyone to live who wants to. It's the Playboy Mansion, which, yes, Hugh Hefner, who just died, he had on the first floor, he had a large apartment there. It was a four-story building up, and then the basement, the below place, is where the swimming pool was, the pool table, and all of that. And the top 2 floors were where the bunnies would stay. It was a very, everyone thinks, oh, excuse me, everyone thinks, oh boy, what a life that was. I was not wild, so they had very few parties at the Playboy Mansion when I was living there. I went to one, and I didn't find it interesting. I was more hanging out at discotheques, and there was a college hangout where everyone would drink. So I'd like to hang out there. That's where I would usually go. So I left the party. That's the only one I ever attended. But the top 2 floors, we weren't allowed to have any male friends in the building at all. They were very strict, and even when at the club, they called members key holders, and we were never allowed to date any of them. And people had to be extremely respectful towards us, or they would not be allowed back. So it really was, even though you have this great image about it, it was very, very, they were very careful to make sure everyone was very respectful. We were glorified waitresses is what we were, but it was fun. And we would do community service. I remember we had gone to an orphanage, and we'd also gone to hospitals. We didn't wear our bunny outfits then, but we had like bunny sweaters, and then we had sweaters that had the Playboy bunny on it or something like that. So we did do some charity work. Then I had one of my bunny girlfriends. She was telling me about her boyfriend who was taking LSD. And she told me that he could see himself in past lives. Now this was in maybe 64, 65. So this was very early when very little was known about it. Word was just coming out of Harvard of experimenting there, and that people were having an altered consciousness. And when I heard that he can see himself in past life, I said, can you get me some? Now, mind you, I had a Catholic upbringing. I had zero idea of reincarnation. I don't even know if I ever heard the word reincarnation. It was not part of anything that I can think of on why I would be so eager to find this out for myself. Can't think of any background in my life that would have allowed me to have some exposure to find this something that I want to know. But something in me never questioned it, wanted to know. So she gave me some, and I remember the first time, I think it was the first time I tried it, or the second time. Might be, I'm not sure which one was first. I tried it 3 times in Chicago, and so I can't say which one was first. One time, I sat in front of the mirror, for like 6 hours. Up in the dorm. It was in the evening. Everyone was out, so it must have been my day off. I sat and I stared at my eyes. I just stared at my eyes. My eyes did not change. The person looking through my eyes stayed the same, but my face changed. I would see myself as an old lady in the covered wagon days. I saw myself as an African with a ring in my nose. I saw myself as an Englishman with a top hat. I saw myself as a little girl in the covered wagon days. But 2 or 3 times I saw myself, I don't know if it was Egypt or Rome, where I had the hair and I was sort of like lounging. That came 2 or 3 times to me, that face, that person. Twice I had a vision. Twice while I'm staring, things changed and I'm looking at an ocean. And I see a man sitting against some rocks, and he's looking out into the ocean. And he had a ponytail, a young man, my age. And then it would cease to go, and I would go on seeing all these faces. Then again, same thing, clear, opened up, and I'm seeing off into the ocean, and someone sitting there profile with the ponytail near some rocks. That was one time. I think I did it twice there. Then another time that I did it, I went to the hangout, I think it was on State Street, where all the University of Chicago students hung out. That's where I really liked to go. And this was the first time that I experienced where consciousness was different than I had known it. Of course, out here I'm on acid. We have no idea. It was so pure in those days. I'm listening to all this music, and people are sort of dancing around, and then I have to go to the bathroom, so I go upstairs. And I remember the Righteous Brothers song, You've Got That Loving Feeling, was playing. So I'm listening to it as I'm going upstairs. And when I'm upstairs, and I go to the bathroom and everything, the whole time I'm up there, I'm still hearing, You've Got That Loving Feeling. Then when I open the door to come back outside to go downstairs, it's not playing. There's a whole different song playing. I was hearing in my head so loud and so clear the song that I had been listening to when I went. It was still playing in my head. But the minute I opened the door, they were playing another totally different song downstairs. So I realized that was inside of me, that there's some part of me that can retain or experience something other than what's out there. And so that was my experiences with LSD in Chicago. I had a friend, and at that time, of course, things started to change for me. And then I had another bunny friend who was leaving and driving back to California. Well, I decided I'm going to go. I don't think about things. If I want to do something, I just go. So I quit, and I went with her. And we went to, both of us got jobs on Sunset Boulevard in Hollywood, in nightclubs, discotheques, because I was into fun. And then I went to visit my brother, who was living up in Haight, Ashbury. I went up to visit him. He was living on the second floor, and the top floor. So when I went to visit him, we went up on the top floor, and it was a flat, because in those days, you had many people living in places, and they had the whole top floor. My brother had his own apartment the next floor down. So we're going up, we're visiting, and I remember at the end of the hall, there was this poster of this beautiful man, but I never went close, and it said, I am the Ancient One. It was the I am the Ancient One poster. So that was the first time, this was 1966, I saw Meher Baba's face. But I didn't go any further. I didn't inquire about it or anything. It was just, I saw this, that's all. They had a poster there. I go back to Los Angeles, and I'm working, and I'm sharing a place with some friends. And I had started smoking pot by then, a little bit, not much. And then one of my girlfriends, Joyce, some of her friends came to visit. And there were 3 of them, and they were going to go down to the beach and drop acid. Now, at this time I was living in Playa del Rey, which is just close to Santa Monica. And they were going to drop some acid. She pleaded me, please, Judy, don't do it. Promise me you won't do it. I've heard that people flip out. Please. By then, some information was coming. This was 67 now. Some information was coming out about it. Now some people are flipping out and this and that. So she had not ever used it. She pleaded with me not to take it. I said, okay. If you promise, I said, okay. But I'll smoke pot, which is fine because she smoked pot too. So we go down to the beach. Chuck, Terry, and what was the other fellow? I don't remember his name. And they drop some acid and they start wandering off. They have a blanket. I sit on the blanket, and for some reason, and I'm facing the ocean, and for some reason, one of them had a long, in my head, became a staff and put it there. They wander off. And after a little while, they come by. I said, give me half. So I take half, LSD. Because it would come in, they would put it in a little tablet, sometimes like an acid tablet. An acid tablet. For headaches. Aspirin. They put it in aspirin. So I said, give me half. So I took half. And after a short while, I said, give me the other half. So much for Joyce and my promise, huh? And I'm sitting there, and I missed a major part before I get to this. Major. So when I was let me go back. As I say, I didn't have notes. When I was in San Francisco visiting my brother, I came back down to LA. They had the first love-in there. Major, big love-in at the Golden Gate Park, and I missed it because I left and I came down to see it, went back to LA. So I missed it. So Terry, my friend Joyce had her friend Terry and Chuck, and there were a couple of the people, and there was going to be a love-in at Griffith Park in Los Angeles. So I wanted to go, really wanted to go, because I missed the San Francisco love-in. I wanted to go to this love-in. And so we were all smoking pot, and we were making tea with the stems of the pot. So we were drinking pot tea with the tea, and then we all went to the love-in. Now we were sitting on a slope, and the road was up here. And we were sitting on a slope, and there everyone playing all this music, drums and all kinds of music, and people chasing frisbees and that kind of stuff. And then my friend Joyce says, Judy, look at that man. I go, who? She, no, up there, look. And I turned to look, and standing up on top of the rise near the road was this man who had, and of course, had long hair. Now, none of us thought anything of that because men had long hair then. And he had a long white robe. Well, we didn't think, because in the hippie days, people dressed all kinds of ways. So it wasn't, that didn't set me off as anything different. It was, but when I looked, and she said, look at that man. And I go, wow, he is what is. I don't know what I meant by that. I had no idea. All I know is I said, he is what is. And then I turn, and I'm not looking anymore. I'm doing this and that. Then I look over, and I see him walking over a ways, walking down. Looks like he's interacting with some people. And I turned to Joyce, my friend, and I said, the day's going to come when I'm going to leave with the clothes on my back. Again, where did this come from? I had no idea. But that came, and that was it. The day's going to come when I'm going to leave with the clothes on my back. Then I'm just involved again, and next thing I know, this same beautiful being is standing there with shades on, though, and he's looking at me. Then I don't see him again. And then the next thing I remember in my mind's eye is him running down along the grass with a little dog running next to him. At least that's in my mind's eye, that's there. And when we get back to the house, I'm taking a shower, and it hit me like a ton of bricks. That was Jesus. That's who it was, Jesus. And that's who it was. That was Baba, but I didn't know that. That was Jesus. And this is during the time that Baba would be so much in seclusion, and no one was allowed to ride him or any of this stuff, but Baba was in seclusion, and he was doing his work everywhere. This is where you're having this happening all over the world, the young people dropping out, the change of consciousness, the Beatles doing their thing, and in India was studying with sitar and all. I mean, the whole younger generation was dropping out of college and out of work, and something was happening worldwide, a change in consciousness. And so I don't doubt myself when I experience things. I may not understand them, but I don't doubt myself. Then a day or two later, I'm down at the beach dropping acid. So that's very important to know this part of the dream, of the story. So I'm at the beach and I'm dropping acid. What's I consider a staff, was just a stick someone put in the sand in front of me, and that became a staff. So when the acid began taking effect, this is where I went through my heaven-hell state. I realized I didn't understand what was causing the change of states. But the heaven state would be where things would be, even though this was evening, this was night on the beach. The heaven state would be where everything was light. And my three friends were like princes. And like wise prince, beautiful people. When I would be in the hell state, things were dark, and they were like creepy. And I went back and forth. And I noticed every time I would center my awareness on myself and my lifestyle, I was not promiscuous. That was not my lifestyle. My lifestyle was makeup, going discothequing, going out on dates, having fun. It wasn't any meaningful life. It wasn't a fruitful life. It was a life of just fun. But it was self-centered fun. It was all about me having fun. And so every time I was thinking about myself, it would become dark, and things were not beautiful. And when I wasn't focused on myself and I was focused out, it was beautiful. Well, after a few times of going back and forth, I realized it's me. It's me. My life is hell. My life has been hell. I'm not in beauty. And I knew I didn't want anything to do with my life anymore. I told Chuck and Terry and them and April, their girlfriend, they were all leaving the next day. They were all going. Was it Chuck? I think it was from, Terry was a truck driver. He had part of the truck. Tim and April, that was the other one, guy's name, Tim, they were driving a car, so Chuck and Terry were going to ride in his semi. And I said to them, when they were walking back, I said, I can't go back. I don't want to go back. I don't want to ever go back. I don't want anything to do with my life. Can I go with you? Can I go? I want to go with you. They said, well, of course. I said, what about Joyce? What about your friend? I said, I don't want to talk to anybody. Call and tell them I'm not coming back. I'm not ever coming back. What about your things? I don't care. No. So they said, no, you should call. So we go to their place they were renting, and I called Joyce, and I tell Joyce I'm not coming back. She said, what about your things? I said, I don't care. Throw them away, whatever. I don't care. I'm not coming back. And I left with the clothes on my back right then and there, which is what I told her I would do a few days earlier. But I had no idea what I meant then. So we were driving along, and it was kind of almost magical. People would look at us, and there must have been something that was coming from us, some kind of light or something, because they would look like in amazement. And I didn't know why. And then that's when the first time I became aware, too, that But some people would look at us and they had meanness inside of them. And all my life, I have thought, because by nature I'm like a puppy. I'm so friendly, and I literally laugh and smile all the time. This is by nature. And I remember people wouldn't like me at times, and I never knew why. They was almost like they resented me, and I thought it was something wrong with me. I, honest to God, thought there was something wrong with me. And then when I was in this awareness state, because it didn't leave right away, the acid, I don't know if it was the effects of the acid that lasted. I wasn't high anymore after a few hours, but an awareness stayed with me. And I saw meanness in people. And I realized, that's not me, it's them. They resent some people who are mean resent happiness. And they deliberately try and hurt you. That was the first time I ever realized it. I was born in 1944, so I'm 22 years old at this time. And it's the first time I was aware that it wasn't me when people were nasty and mean to me. It was because they resented my happiness. And then we were going up to Nevada, which is where Chuck had a place in Reno, so we were all going to go there. And on the way, when we reached the outskirts of Reno, we stopped at this place that Terry knew these two women, and they had a house, so we stopped and we were going to visit. We were visiting them, and I didn't know, but they were Baba lovers. They had people sleeping on the floor. They would go find people who were homeless or drunk, and they would let them come and sleep on the floor instead of out on the street. That's what they had on the floor, and the people were people that were just that were homeless. And I was sitting on the sofa, and I remember one of the girls whispering to Terry, and that's the first time I heard Baba's name. She whispered something about Meher Baba. And so that's the first time I heard Baba's name. No idea that photo, because I never went to see the name on the photo. I just was from a distance, and I saw a little bit of I Am the Ancient One, but I couldn't even see the rest of it because I never went closer in Haight, Ashbury. So we were there for a while, and that was it. Then we went to Chuck's place. Then I decided I wanted to go back to San Francisco to be with my brother. And I wanted to go live with my brother in San Francisco. So that was the days we were hitchhiking. So who was it? Someone else and myself, we hitchhiked back to San Francisco. Not back for me, it was to San Francisco. I think that was the time it went. Yeah, at my brother's. Was the time of San Francisco? I went back to my brother's. By then, my brother's living upstairs in the flat where Baba's photo was in the back. And so I'm there for not many days, and one of the persons I must have met that I don't remember, but I must have met him in Reno, he comes knocking at the door. And he wanted to get some posters of Meher Baba. And by then I had been on the that poster shop that's literally on the corner of Haight and Ashbury. And I had seen that poster that was in the apartment down at the end of the hall. I saw it there in the poster shop, right there on the corner of Haight and Ashbury. So I said, well, I know where you can get it. Come on. So we went to the poster shop, and I told the man, he wants to get some of these posters of Meher Baba. And the guy says, oh, we don't have any. I said, but you've got one right there. He said, no, but there's some Baba lovers that live across the street there, literally 2 doors down on Ashbury. Haight was the main street, and Ashbury was across. 2 doors down, there's some Baba lovers there. They're the ones that gave it to us. He said, maybe they have some. So we went over there. We knock on the door, and the guy answers, and whoever this fella is, I do not remember his name. He said, do you have any of these posters? He said, sure, come on inside. And he gave him these posters. And he said, look. He said, if you want to know about Meher Baba, there is someone who lives here. But he's working right now. He'll be back this evening. His friend met Meher Baba, and he can tell you the story. So we said, sure, we'll be back. So we go back that evening, and the guy's up on the next floor, and we go up there, and he's sitting on the edge of his bed, and this other fella and myself are sitting on the floor. And he starts telling his story. Well, the story he's telling is Robert Dreyfuss' story. This is Robert Dreyfuss' friend. So it's Robert Dreyfuss' story that I was hearing. But what happened when he's telling the story, time stopped. And all of a sudden, I am 2,000 years ago, literally 2,000 years ago. I could smell the oldness of everything. That it was like I was transported. Or I went through a portal, and I was where I am, but at the same time, part of me was 2,000 years ago. And I'm hearing about Jesus. It's the same. It's the same. I'm hearing about Jesus. And in that moment, I knew Jesus and Baba were one and the same. I'm hearing about Jesus. So this is how I must have felt when I heard about Jesus 2,000 years ago. It's the same as I'm hearing about Meher Baba. The energy, everything's the same. And that was it. That's where I became the Baba lover. And then he finishes telling his story. And I go back to my brother's place. And what book do I see there? God Speaks. Obviously, apparently one of the persons who lived there, I never met him, ever. In all those months I lived there, I never met him. He was a Sufi, I think. He was always working, so he had to be a Sufi. And so I started reading it. Well, of course, as any of you have picked up God Speaks, and you start reading it, there's pages, literally the first pages and pages of nothing and everything and everything and nothing. I'm reading, I'm going, what? So I take the book and I go back to that house. And I said, look, this doesn't make any sense to me. What do you mean? Nothing, everything, everything, nothing. It doesn't make any sense. How am I to know what this is? He said, no, don't try and figure it out. Just keep reading. Baba has a way of bringing you into it. Don't try and figure anything out. Just keep reading. So I did. Then I was going one day. We were just 2 blocks from the Golden Gate Park. Oh, they told me if I wanted to know more about Baba, that there's a Sufi center, and they have books on Baba, and I can get more there on Sutter Street. This is in San Francisco. So, but before I do that, I'm going to Golden Gate Park, and as I'm walking in at one of the entrances, there's this guy there he has on a brown robe or something, and he has a bag, and he's offering the people to reach in and take it, whatever's in there. So I reach in, and it's an apple, and I look up to thank him. I go, Alan! My friend Alan Saviscus, who I had known from Los Angeles years before. What are you doing here? He said, I said, what are you doing here? And he said, I'm just wandering around. I said, look, I have a place over here. Come on and visit. And so he came over, and I told him about Baba. And I didn't know he became a Baba lover then. My brother, by the way, became a Baba lover right at the same time I did. I told my brother about Baba, and without even knowing, he became a Baba lover. And so then Alan left, and didn't see him again. And but I had told him about Baba. So then, who was it with me? Well, I went down to the Sufi Center to find out more about Meher Baba and to get some books. And they were going to have a class. They were going to have some classes to tell you about Baba. Apparently, this was the only year they ever did it, because apparently they have initiate classes at a certain time every year. But this was going to be in February, I think. It was in February. And when I told a Sufi years later that I took classes, they said, no, you don't. They don't have them then. Well, they did. They did in 1968. They had classes in February. And so I started going to those classes, and Murshida would talk, and I think Lud Dimple and some others. I had no idea what a Sufi was. I had no interest in being in any organization. I wanted to know about Baba. That's what I wanted. Then so I was going on, these were on a certain time of meetings on Thursday, I think. And then my brother decided to move out to across the Marin County, and we got so he and I and some other people, we got a houseboat. But I have my meetings over at the Sufi Center in San Francisco, so I'm hitchhiking. And I'm wondering why, no, there was a function before that. I was having a hard time getting over, but I'd hitchhiked to San Francisco. But there was going to be a function I heard about at Berkeley. So I'm hitchhiking to try and catch a ride. No one's stopping for me. Why isn't anyone stopping for me to give me a ride there? It's not that far. And then finally this couple stopped. Their name was Tony and Ken Hastings, I think. They stopped, this couple, and I'm telling them where I'm going. And so we start talking, oh, they're going there too. Well, wonderful. And then I tell them about I go to these meetings in San Francisco. They, oh, we do too. And they live nearby. So there was my ride to go to the meetings. And so I started going to meetings. And then after a while, I decided, I felt very strongly I wanted to return to Los Angeles. And like I said, I do what I feel. I don't question what I feel. I just follow what I feel. So I wanted to return to Los Angeles. So Murshida said, well, look. Oh, no, I know what it is. That class was over, and I was talking. They wanted us to talk to become Sufis. They wanted us to, I talked to Lud Dinfo. But I'm not interested in organizations. I said, I think I want to move to Los Angeles. And she said, well, stay in touch with me. And here's Phyllis Frederick. She lives down in the beach area. And my sister was living down there in Playa del Rey at the time, and which is where I'd lived when I took the acid and left, but not in her place. She wasn't living in that place then. So I hitchhiked down, and I stayed with my sister. And one day I thought, I'm going to go see if Alan. Go to Alan's parents and see if they know where Alan is. So I go knock on Alan's house. They lived in Playa del Rey, or right next to it. And who answered the door but Alan? His parents were in Europe. He was living in Venice. He came over that day to wash his clothes. The day I come knocking at the door, he came there to wash his clothes. You see Baba's timing? So, Alan, we start talking, and what are you doing? And he's living in Venice. I said, okay, I want to, same with my sister, I have my dog, but the owners of the building don't want my dog there, so I have to find a place. He said, well, stay with me, and then you find a place. So he was living in a storefront on Pacific Avenue, which became our Baba Bookstore later. So I'm staying there while I'm looking for a place, and I find one in Linney Canal. They have all these canals in Venice. That's probably where they got they made these canals. So I got a little place in Linney Canal, which is just about 4 minutes from where Alan's place is. And at that time, then he and I hitchhiked over to meet Phyllis. Because I saw him as soon as I came down, I went to see if his parents knew who he was. So he and I hitchhiked, we meet Phyllis Frederick, which we meet Phyllis. And coming back from Phyllis, we're hitchhiking to go back. Who stops for us? I don't know if you know Terry Adams. Well, she was married to Hank Scott. Raina and Merwan were her children. But Merwan was just born. So we're hitchhiking, and Hank is coming from the hospital. Terry just gave birth to Merwan. And so he gives us a ride back to the place. And so what happens is we hear that there's some Baba lovers, Jack Small and some others, that are trying to open a bookstore in Hermosa Beach, but they can't get a license. They're having all this trouble. Alan and I look at each other and we say, why don't we go? Why don't we start one? This is a bookstore. I mean, this is a building. This is a storefront. Let's start a bookstore. And we thought, let's start a Meher Baba Bookstore ourselves. So we hitchhike over to, because Venice is part of Los Angeles, where Hermosa Beach is a city. And so it's its own city, so they have different regulations. We got our license just like that. So we go back, and then Alan and I hitchhike up to Berkeley area, which was, I think it was called The Box, where Rick Chapman and some others were living, and they had books and things. And so Alan and I went up there to get books, and then I don't remember how we hitchhiked back with some books, and they were going to send us some books, and also connect to the Sufi Center so that we could. So we're all hippies. And so we fixed our bookstore up. I didn't bring any pictures of it. I don't know if I have any here. I have them in California, one of my daughters. But we had flowers everywhere. We had, artists, so we had flowers everywhere. We had the Meher Baba Bookstore flowers on it, on all the 2 windows, flowers on it, on the door. And we had a friend that she could write backwards. So she was writing, writing the letters from the backwards from the inside. Meher Baba Bookstore on the door itself, and so that when you'd be outside you would see. And at this time, Baba was in such strict seclusion. He wasn't seeing anyone. You weren't allowed to write. You weren't allowed to go. You weren't allowed to have any communication with Baba this way. And we'd have our meetings. We started having meetings. We'd also go at Phyllis's on Monday. She'd have hers. It is really interesting. Poor Robin. Robin's leaving tomorrow for the States, and she came because I was going to tell my story. Robin, you can watch it on YouTube, please. Go pack and get ready. She hasn't even packed yet.
No,
come on.
Don't do.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Okay. She hasn't even packed. She's leaving tomorrow. We were talking. Oh, Phyllis. What's really amazing about Phyllis Frederick is she never tried to dominate or control any meeting. We'd go to her house for meetings. They were so casual. And when we had our meetings, she would not have anything to do with them. She wanted us to run our own meetings. We did not have any head in Los Angeles. We were it. We Baba lovers were it. So we didn't have anyone trying to structure or control how we do things. And the Los Angeles Baba lovers, you go to a Baba meeting, this is how we are. Hi, welcome, come on. And we would, after our meetings, we were right on the beach. So, we're a block from the beach. And so we'd go hang out on the beach afterwards. And so we'd sit on the floor. We were making cushions on the floor, because remember, we're all hippies. In fact, in my place in Venice, my mattress was on the floor, and then one day, Phyllis, we took some pictures of all of us in front of the bookstore, and Phyllis said, "Let me send that to Baba." And I said, "But Phyllis, Baba doesn't want us to write him or anything." She said, "Baba said you can't write. Baba said you can't go there. Baba never said you cannot send a photo."
Oh, tricky.
You see, there's some people who are so good like that. I heard the Luck brothers are like them. They are very clever. They can follow Baba literally what he says, but they see the loopholes. And they're very good at finding the loopholes. But I am so literal in how I live that my mind is not like that. I don't even go there. I don't even venture to think, how can I make this work for me? And so I don't know how to, my structure, my mind isn't that way, so I don't have any idea how to do that. And anyway, so Phyllis said that, so she sent the photo to Papa of all of us in front of the bookstore. And later, after I moved here, I heard that Meru said that Baba pointed to me a couple of times, which of course that makes me very happy. I never asked her myself. Why? because I didn't want to find out maybe it wasn't true. One of the residents who always when I lived here, while living here, I always was at Meherabad, and I'd only go on my day off to Meherabad, so I wasn't around, but the people who are around the Mongolia all the time that work there, they're the ones that told me this. But I didn't ever want to verify it other than what they told me, because I like what they told me. And let's keep it at that. But I know Baba saw the photo of all of this because Phyllis sent it. So then, and we had, and this is when Monty's sending all the family letters and all that, and we're getting lots of stuff touched by Baba. We would get boxes of things touched by Baba because we had our bookstore. So I have all kinds of stuff touched by Baba. And then we hear that Baba's going to call us. Well, we all thought, being young hippies, right, and that we all thought Baba was going to come here when he comes out of seclusion. He's going to come to the West. None of us have any money. We all have Mickey Mouse jobs, and none of us have any money. And we were all so sure Baba would come, because there's so many of us now that are Baba lovers, that Baba's going to come here. Well, we get the notice that Baba's called everyone for his lovers only to come to Darshan in India. India.
Yeah.
Not here. I mean, not in the States. Here was when I was in the States, not in the States. So we all are thinking, how are we going to make money? None of us are professionals at anything. You know, we had all been hippies. We're still leftover hippies, even though, I should have mentioned, I never told some of the things on when I had heard about Meher Baba that time when I was at the Ashbury house, and he was telling about Baba. He also said Baba said no drugs. Well, I never used drugs again. That was it. I never did drugs again. But a few days later, I was at some people's house, and they were passing around a joint, and I did a toke. I felt so bad, I fasted the next day. I've never fasted in my life. I never knew what fasting was, but I fasted. That was my atonement. But one time when I was in Reno, I did take peyote. I went on an Indian reservation, Pyramid Lake, and I took peyote there. So that was it. I never did any of that hard stuff. And so when I heard Baba said no drugs, that was it for me. Now I'm down in Venice, California, and we hear that Baba has called us all to India. We were all hippies. You know, we were living in the eternal now. What for tomorrow, working, saving money. You know, we get a job enough to hold us over to buy our food and things, and that's how we were. That was it. Now we have to get money to go to India. How to do? We give all our name, and what's interesting, our money the Sufis were going to handle it, and the LA people and the Sufis were going to go together. We had to have our money at the Sufi, send up to the Sufi Center by the 31st of January 1969. Baba's Darshan was going to be from April 10th to June 10th. There were all kinds of restrictions for going. We could only go for 10 days. We had to immediately come back. And we had to go in groups and things like that. So the two groups of LA were going to pair up, the Sufis and the LA people. You'll see why I laugh later. So anyway, at Darshan, we were so unprofessional and they were so professional. So we're all going to go together. So we have to how to make money. Okay. Everyone moved into my place. I have my dog, right? I have my dog, Banjo. Terry, who had the baby, and we're hitchhiking and Hank and Terry and their baby, Merwan, and their dog, I gave them my little room. My place was not bigger than the whole living room, kitchen right here. We had a little wall, had a little tiny bathroom, a little, where you guys are was probably where the wall was, and then the little room. And the little, everything was open except for the wall for the bedroom, and the bathroom was over there. So we make triple-decker bunks, And we put a curtain there, and myself, I had the top one, Mary had the middle one, and Janine had the bottom one, and we had a curtain there. On the floor was Terry, the truck driver, my brother, and was Alan there? Alan, I'm not sure if Alan was living in the back of the bookstore or not, or Alan. There was 3 guys, so it must have been Alan. They're all in my little tiny place. We're all living there. And none of us have cars, so we're hitchhiking to our jobs. My first job was at a place where you make fishing poles. You dip them into this thing and you pull them out so it gives them all that glossy stuff. And then from that job, I would literally hitchhike over to my next. So I was working 16 hours a day. I'd work 8 hours there. I'd hitchhike over to the next job. I had something like an hour before the other one started. And there we did all these little processed chips that were coming through, and we'd put these little chips. There was 3 or 4 of us working at that place. And so everyone had 2 jobs. That's how we got our money. So we got enough. I don't even remember how much our ticket was because there were so many of us. They were going to have 2 planes. So we send our money. Anyway, we all make it. We all make enough money. We send it to San Francisco, so it could be there by the 31st because that's when they have to put the deposit down for the planes. I think it was TWA we were flying. Then we get a message that, and then Baba was so ill and all of this. Then we get a message that Baba dropped the body. To this day, I cannot understand. I was with some friends that I was riding. Someone had a motorcycle, they had a sidecar, and I was riding in the sidecar on that day that I heard it. To this day, I don't understand my feelings. I felt joy. Unbelievable freedom and joy. Now, mind you, I'm not thinking I'm going to go see Bob in about 40 days, right? Or however, whenever we were going to leave on April. We were the first group. The San Francisco, LA were the first group, April 10th. But I'm so happy. I just feel so a freedom and a joy I cannot explain. And I've never thought much about it. But today, last night when I was trying to review some of the events of my life, I tried to think, why did I feel such joy? I mean, I wasn't going to see Baba in the body, but I didn't connect those two. All I can say, and I've never felt different about it. That's what I felt. Unbelievable. And we were going along the coast, so there was the breeze from the ocean on one side and the breeze of being in the little sidecar, and I was just feeling this freedom, this open air and joy. And then we're back in the bookstore. Alan was there, I was there, and a few others. It was it was one day. It wasn't like a day where we had a meeting, but everyone sort of hung out there too. We get a call from San Francisco, from the Sufis. It is now on a first come, first served basis on going to India, because they knew that many people would not go because Baba dropped the body. And so whoever was first, they would fill up the plane first by the first names. So Alan and I were there, and we said, we're going. I don't remember if anyone else was in the bookstore at that time, but we're going. And we said, we'll get a list. So we got a list of people who wanted to still go. Terry's, Lynn McGuire, she decided not to go. And I told Lynn, I said, oh, I shouldn't say that she would feel sorry one day. I shouldn't have said that, sorry. But there's Terry and many of us still were going to go. But there were others that had struggled to get the money, and they decided not to because it was going to be such a financial burden. They made that choice. My brother decided not to go. This is something you make your own choice to go or not to go. He decided not to go. So there was our group from LA and then the Sufis. And so what happened was they ended up with one large plane on TWA, and then there was a large group that were the leftovers, and they became part of a chartered a group on another plane. And that plane went through Hawaii. which turned out to be very fortunate for the Alapos, because that's when, coming back, when they told, what's his name that has the center in Hawaii, he's dead now, but his wife is still there, told him about Baba, and they're coming back, and he went to Darshan, came back with a chair of Baba's, and has it at their center in Hawaii. So, so there was that separate plane, and now we had to have shots, lots of them. Mary of the triple decker, Mary was in the middle. Her father was a medical doctor, so he offered to give us our injections free. So when he came to give us our injections free, there were so many of us. I mean, there was a lot of us. All of us. There were a lot of us that, in LA, everyone that's going was there. So I think there were more than he expected, a lot more. But his daughter was going, and so he gave them to all of us. Even, I'm sure he wasn't too happy about that, but he did it. And we're very grateful for that. Some people had some reaction because we had a lot of shots. and anyway, then now it's time to go. So we have to go up to, get up to San Francisco. Did we board from LA? I don't remember. We must have boarded from LA, and then it was stopped up there and picked up more. How were we up there? I don't remember that part. I remember it was raining. So we had to wait a day to take off, or wait a few hours to take off. Then we took off, and we went through, I think, going to Tokyo, on the way through Tokyo, on the way. And when we got there, we changed planes, and then we took Air India. Air India was nice then. I've only taken a few times since then. Nobody can beat Air India how it was then. They gave us these, I still have my bag. They gave us this bag, Air India, and I put my Baba button. Literally, the bag has fallen apart because over these 50 years, the seams and everything came apart. I really want to try and find someone to stitch it. I took it one place once, and he said, no. I will try again, but I have all my pieces to my bag. And it was so luxurious on the plane, and it was just really a wonderful plane. And then we landed in Mumbai. Mumbai is a beautiful airport now, but then it was very funky. It was like an old hangar at some old airport in the middle of the west of the United States. It was really, and it was very run down, chip paint, the whole thing. Many of the ones who came to greet us, Baba's old-time lovers, were up on the roof, waiting and greeting us and all of this. And so then we got in the buses to go to Pune. The darshan was going to be in Pune. I was in the bus with Jal and the twins. And I remember Jal telling the twins, stand up and be comfortable. Because there wasn't enough space to sit for everybody, so they had to stand. Now we're going up the Ghats. If any of the, I don't know how many of you out there have been in India, and the roads were not good then, and the transportation was probably worse. And so we were going up the Ghats, and our bus could not quite make it. So we had to get out. We had to get out so the bus had enough oomph to get up some of the Ghats. And then when we get to Pune, I was staying in the Pune Club. They assigned us different places. And I was staying in the Pune Club. And this is where Dr. Donkin was staying. And Phyllis was staying there too. Phyllis was staying there too because I remember her having meals with us. Mary was my roommate then, and Terry, I think, or something. And oh no, Terry was across the way. I think we had 2 or 3 people per room. And so they told us to take a day off, a day of resting, and then the darshan would start the next day. The next day, they have the buses come and get us, and they take us, and as we're pulling in, we're all starting to get off off the buses, the transportation. I heard this later, of course, that we all have, from that Mani and the women Mandali were stunned. We're all young.
Oh.
We're all young, and we've never met Baba. We've come around from across the world to a darshan, and we've never met Baba. And they were stunned. We kept getting up. There's so many of us. And so we go into the big hall in Guru Prasad, which they tore down years later. There's a whole story on that in Guru Prasad, which is not necessary of this story here. And in time they tore it down, and all the parts that were Baba's room, the door, the marble, the front of the baluster, all of that, they made a memorial right there on Bungarden Road. But it was at the palace still then. And we went inside the big hall, and there was a chair with Baba's photo on it. And the women Mandali were sitting in front. I don't remember if they were out right now. We were coming in, and they separated us. Men on one side, women on the other. Now, I've never in my life been separated with gender. This I found very strange. Why are the women on one side and the men on the other? But there were so many that they had to have some women on that side too. There just wasn't enough space. And there's a lovely photo of the darshan thing of Virginia, smaller, sitting right in front of me. So we're sitting there, and the men are there, most of them. And then the women come, and they're sitting up front. And then Erich comes, and this is what I heard later, years later. They had no idea, the Mandali, what to expect. None. Baba had just dropped the body. Every darshan, Baba had been there in the body. But Baba had said he would not cancel this darshan. He would not postpone it. He said it would be different. He said he would be reclining. He said nobody would touch him. But who could figure that out, what Baba meant by that? He said it would be different than any darshan previously. This is only for his lovers. So they didn't know what to do. They didn't know what would happen. Mind you, we're the first group on the first day. They're absolutely lost. Meher is in grieving. And Erich comes to the mic. Someone just reminded me what he said. You have kept your, oh, I'm going to cry. He said, you kept your appointment with God.
And right now, we have to change it.
And now we're going to stop for a second because they're going to change the tape.
Perfect.
You know, it is amazing timing. You kept your appointment with God.
10 minutes break,
Huh?
10 minutes break? No?
No, we don't
Keep
have
going.
to do
We're
that.
just going to wait for Abeba to change the tape, because we also it's not just on YouTube that we're doing this. I've been doing since the 90s. I've been videoing stories of the Mandali. I've been videoing people who I've met, because I live here at Meherabad. So I've been videoing cassette tapes for almost 20 years now. And I take all these tapes to the Los Angeles Baba Center, where they make copies and they keep them in archive. And just now they're beginning to put some of them on YouTube. But I want to have copies so that here at the archive at Meherabad, our archive building, they can also store these. But now that everything's becoming digital, but still it's important to have the physical ones also. So I want to have, so they make 2 copies when they go to LA, to make sure that if anything ever happens to one, you have another copy. And so that's what we're doing. She's changing the tape because, and actually I'm going to visit my family in a couple of weeks, and I'll be taking a lot of these back to LA. So we'll just, well, she's almost ready to go, so we'll go in just a second. The journey. It's while I'm waiting for her. It's I tell you, Baba for me is a magical journey. I'm waiting for her to do that. I literally believe it's a magical journey because there is nothing that we know. Anything can happen anytime. And sometimes the most amazing things come into our life. And he brings such joy. It's not that he doesn't make, he pounds you, pounds you, pounds you, pounds you. But he does that to get you out of the way so that your God self that's connected to him comes out and the joy you feel. But it's not an easy journey, but it's the most joyous journey. So are we ready to go?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're at Darshan, and no one knows what to expect, but we've kept our appointment with God. And one of my first impressions, before Eric said that, I was about we're all sitting on the floor. I'm about 3 rows back. And in the front, someone had a Baba picture that was on the floor before Eric made his announcement. And this is an impression that stayed with me always. Mara, who I knew so little about, she comes and she picks up that photo with unbelievable reverence. I've never seen reverence like that. She picked it. She kissed it with the most reverent love. And she went and she placed it on Baba's chair. That had a profound impact on me. Seeing that love. And then she went to sit down. Then Eric said, we've kept our appointment with God. And no one was sure what to do. And I really can't remember the sequence of how things had, but Murshida, this is why I laughed earlier, the Sufis. They have a lot of professionals about everything. The Sufis are they're very organized. It's very, very important for them that you have a good occupation, that you do service, and the very, very disciplined life. And they would be putting so they had prepared performances. Now we in LA were funky. We only had a few people that played the guitar, and 2 of them that sang and played the guitar didn't come. They decided not to come. So we didn't have any musicians with us. We didn't have any really great performers with us. We didn't have any, frankly. And we didn't prepare anything. The Sufis had this. They had these. So I don't remember at what point, if something was talked, if they spoke for a while, maybe Francis Brabazon. I remember his poem, and one of his poems about feeling like with Baba, sometimes like you're upside down in a garbage can. It's how you feel sometimes with Baba. You know? I remember his poem that he was reading. I don't remember the sequence of events, but the Sufis, they had a dance to perform, and they had these beautiful gowns, colored gown. Each dancer had a colored gown, and so they're different colors. And is there a problem?
Oh, we're just going to turn on the mosquito thing.
And they had these beautiful gowns. And they were doing these lovely, lovely performances, dance. Then they had, this is the first time Hank Medlin sang that song, and Murshida said, this is the American arty, and one of the Mandalis said, no, anyone can have an arty. This is not the American arty. So they put a stop to that right then and there. This was an arty, and because it was sung there, it's sung now at the Samadhi, but it's not the American arty. That was corrected immediately by the Mandalay. Anyone can write an arty. So, but that's when Hank Medlin sang that arty, that song that we sing now at the arty. And I didn't particularly care for it. It's not, and even now, I still don't particularly care for it. But now, it's a little different. Now it's bittersweet. Because when I hear it, it's bittersweet. Well, not that song. Excuse me, not that. Excuse me. They sing it at the Samadhi. It's not my favorite. But maybe it's the tune. No. So they had these performances. Well, that evening we all get together at the Amir Hotel. Jack and all of us, we're all there. What can we do? We got to do something. What can we do? We don't do anything. None of us are performers. What can we do? And we did one thing at the LA Center. We had one thing we created. That was Meher Baba, Meher Baba.
For the first one?
God is love, God is love. Meher Baba, Avatar, Avatar. We started doing it at our Baba meetings, and we would chant it. But it's funky, right? It was from that French song Frère Jacques, same tune.
Mommy loved that.
Well, yeah, I didn't know that. I didn't know that. I was embarrassed. Here are the Sufis with these gowns and there's all these performances and all we have is this funky Frère Jacques tune sound of Meher Baba. That's all we knew. We knew nothing.
Judy, can you clarify for the people watching this about Sufism and Sufism reoriented and how that's related to Baba, just a little bit, so that when you say Sufis.
Sure. Baba himself, because I had gone to, it's called Sufism Reoriented. And what it is that the Sufi order from Inayat Khan went to Rabia Martin, and then Rabia Martin had heard of Baba but never met Baba and accepted him as the avatar. She appointed Murshida Dus to be the Murshida, and Murshida went to meet Baba. And Baba changed their charter, and in accordance with, he changed it from how it was. Baba changed their charter, and so they're known as Sufi Reoriented, and it is in California and Washington. I don't know if there's anywhere else. There are Sufi orders, other Sufi orders, but they're not Sufi Reoriented, the one that Baba changed the charter on. So that's what I'm talking about. So this is Sufi Reoriented, not the regular Sufis, the mystic order, though it was. I mean, there's other mystic orders, the dervishes, which are the mystic order of Sufism. So, and it's from Islam, the dervishes, but this was totally reoriented, and it's all focused on Baba. So they had all these beautiful performances, and so Jack said, let's do this. So Jack, the next day at Darshan, Jack gets up and announces, we have something. And I'm going, oh my gosh, humiliation. We are so funky and they are so professional. And so he called everyone up. I didn't get up and go. I was so embarrassed. Literally, I was so embarrassed. I stayed, and Jack even said, there's a few people that didn't come, and he mentioned one, he didn't mention me. A few people didn't come up, but we're going to go ahead and do it. We're going to go. I guess they're not coming out. And I'm sitting there saying, don't you call me, don't you call me, don't you call me. You know? So they do it. Mera, it brought tears to her eyes. That was Mera's favorite. Mera loved the simplicity. She loved the way it was done. It was so simple.
Yeah, Baba's name.
It was just Baba's name. And God is love, God is love. But I didn't know that either until I moved here. So I had many years of not knowing that, and glad that I didn't go up. So all these years I was glad I didn't go up. I was so embarrassed, and I didn't hear about how much Mera loved it. And so then we had a day where we came to Meherabad and to Meherabad. And I remember, and we took the buses, and it was very hot, because this is April, and very hot, and we go to Meherabad. I don't remember if we went to Meherabad first or Meherabad. I think we must have gone to Meherabad first. I remember going into Baba's room, and the thought came to my mind, the bed is it's just about still warm. Baba just left it. You know, that was my thought. I don't remember much about, I remember Baba's room. Clear Baba's room. I don't remember much more about Meherabad, Then we went to Meherabad. And we're walking up the hill. There wasn't a road then. I don't think there was a road then. We're walking up the hill. And what really was so cool, the villagers, they have this dance with these sticks, and they jump up and down, and they jump like this, and they pound their things, and it's so lively, and the men jump up and down, and they go up, and then they down, and then up and down, and they do this thing, and they go in a circle, and it's really, really lively. So when they got up to the top of the hill, some of us tried to do it too, but of course the villagers loved it, but we would look like idiots, but we were having, it was fun. Then it's time to go into Baba's Samadhi. This is before we got in line. Then we're in line to go in. And someone is selling garlands, so we all buy our garlands. And then with a few places in front of me, someone decides not to hold it. They put it on them. They're going to just keep it on them. So we, the next 2, 3 of us, we did the same thing. Well, it must have been Padre. I really don't know who. You cannot give those to Meher Baba. You had them on yourself, and as if now you will be garlanding Baba. You cannot give. We took it off and got another one. We didn't. That was the first garland I ever held in my life. I know if you go to Hawaii, they'll give you garlands, they'll do hula stuff. I never held a garland. None of us had any exposure. I mean, he was shocked. He didn't mean to. I'm sure he didn't mean to frighten us, but it was very shocking because we had no clue that we were offensive. But in the Indian culture, it is like one of the worst things you could ever do. Other than wearing shoes inside of a holy place, that's probably next to it. And you always take your shoes off. And so I got another garland, but one of the Baba lovers didn't. He said, and I interviewed him years later, I'm not going to say who it is. Well, actually, he's on a tape, so you will know. Yergis, he's an artist. He's the one that did the marble carving of Muhammad and Baba there. So I have his story. He's already told on it, so it's already on it, so I can say. And he said, I didn't. He said, because I didn't know, and Baba knew I didn't know. So Baba knew that it was for him. I just, so I didn't change. But I did. I changed the garland. So we go in, it's just dirt. We go in, it's just dirt in there. What I regret, I didn't grab some of the dirt that was on. I didn't know to do things like that. I'm sure that the people did that knew to do things like to save things, but I didn't know to save anything. I'm still in the eternal now, right? I'm still haven't made that transition to realizing that precious things, hold on to. They're precious things. But I was just Baba. It was just Baba. I was just so lost in Baba. And so we went in and we took the darshan inside. And then we went back on the bus and back we went, all in one day. Then we also did some chanting. I know we must have done Satchitananda one, anyway, that one. That we'd have our time, and then darshan's over, and the first day, it was the first day, after bowing down, and what's amazing, I didn't tell that part, when, then after whatever, someone's talking or whatever, then they just had us each come up to the chair and bow down. And what was happening is people were getting to the chair and bursting into tears, including me. When I got there, I started crying and just crying and crying and crying, and then they help you out. So I wandered off by myself into the front, and I was sitting by the fountain. I don't know, I must have been sitting there a long time. And then Terry Adams now, but it was Terry Scott then. Yeah, I think it was Terry. She came and got me. She says, come, Mara wants to meet us. So that's what I'm saying. I must have been there a long time, just lost. Oh, very important. Mm. I'm sitting there by myself, lost in front of the fountain for who knows how long. And while I'm there, I have a flash of absolute knowledge, of absolute certainty that one day I would come and live there, but I knew it'd be later in life. And that reminds me of something I forgot the year before. The year before, when we would go visit Phyllis, one time Phyllis was at the Hermosa bookstore, and myself and before Darshan, Phyllis was reading my palm. Phyllis was one of the most psychic person I'd ever known. And she was so psychic that even during World War II, consciously, because so many people were dying by the thousands a day, they need people on the other side to help the souls across. So consciously, she was being taken out of her body to go help the souls transition across out of their bodies. And she wasn't getting any sleep. So she sent a letter to Baba that she's not getting any sleep. But then all of a sudden she wasn't experiencing that anymore. But Phyllis could see past life, future life. She had once said that to us, our beads, we have one bead here that doesn't move. That's our life. To her, they move. Past, future, they move. And so she remembers her time at King Tut. And all, I mean, there's so much. Anyway, Phyllis, I used to call Phyllis all the time about my dreams because I dream a lot. I have dreams, and she's always telling me to write them down. So one day she said, "Let me read your palm." And so she's reading my palm. She goes, "Oh," she says, "one day later in life, you're going to move to a foreign country and stay there." This was in '68. Now, I'm a hippie. Who cares later in life? I'm in the eternal now. And I always have had a love for Egypt. Not been there. I had not been there in this lifetime, but an unbelievable love for Egypt. So I thought, oh, it must be Egypt. You know, I had no clue what Egypt was like today. I went one time, years later, and I thought, no, not this Egypt. Not this life. No connection there. Anyway, so that's what I thought. Oh, it must be Egypt. So then when I was at Guru Prasad on that first day taking the darshan, I wander out and I'm just in another place. I don't know how to say it. And then I have this flash, literally a flash of absolute knowledge that one day I would move there, but it would be later in life. And never did I connect the two. Never did I even think about the two. And I didn't think anymore about what Phyllis had said. So I would go in and I'd meet Mara. And I don't remember I don't remember Mani. Don't remember any of the other women. They were all standing in a line, but I remember Mara and Naji. Because she was next to, Naji was next to Mara. So I'm standing and I'm holding Mara's hands. And I'm looking in Mara's eyes, and Mara's looking in my eyes. And what is happening is my infinity is looking through my eyes into her infinity. And her infinity is looking through her eyes into my infinity. It was infinity looking at infinity. And then Nadia said something, and I turned, and she's talking, and she's talking with her hands. And I go, "Oh!" I said, "You're just like my grandma." I loved my grandma so much. "You're just like my grandma. She talks with her hands too." And then that was it, And then we met the others, but I don't remember any of the other women. And what's interesting, the first day it was Mara kissing and doing that, and then this also this first day, but that with Mara. And then Darshan's winding out, down, and this was on the first day, before we came to Meherabad and Meherabad. Then it's time to leave. We're taking the train back. And I remember standing between cars. You can stand and look out between the cars of the train. And I would just stand there singing. I was in another place, just Satchitananda song. And I'm not a singer, so I'm not going to sing it to you, but all it is Satchitananda, Paramahansa, Meher Baba, Vidyakananda, and I'll just read all the way to Mumbai. I chanted that all the way to Mumbai. And I remember a man who came by and he was standing there and he'd look at me. He obviously saw I was somewhere else. I was literally somewhere else. And I don't remember much about oh yeah, I do remember coming back. I don't remember much about the journey back, actually. I just remember one incident where I think we stopped at Hong Kong or where, and I took a taxi somewhere to get some food, and then I wanted to give him a tip, and I just had a bunch of their coins, and I gave him something, and he looked at me at first with anger in his eyes, then he kept looking at me, and then he started to laugh. And so when I went inside the hotel, I asked him, I had the strangest thing with the taxi driver man. I said, I went to give him a tip, and I had all these coins, so I gave him a coin. And he got very angry at first, and then he laughed. I said, why would he do that? I said, well, which coin did you give him? I said, this one. And they started laughing. They said, and equals a penny. in Japanese money, equals a penny. But he understood, I'm absolutely, it was clueless. That's why the taxi man started laughing. So I get back, and I'm in my room. I had not been back, not a week, just a few days. And I wake up and I sit up. Remember, I have a mattress on the floor. That's how most of us slept in those days. I sit up and I hear this sound. Whoosh, and I knew I'd been traveling at tremendous speed, and I look, and there's Meher and Baba standing there. And I knew they brought me back from wherever I was, and the sound. Whoosh, and then they're gone. I didn't see them disappear. I must have turned and to hear the sound or something, and then they weren't there. And then I had met someone named John Page. We had meetings, and when I saw John, I saw a light around him, and I knew I was going to marry him. John was opening a Meher Baba Bookstore in Pasadena, but I'd only met John 2 or 3 times. He was opening a Meher Baba Bookstore in Pasadena, so he was coming to find out where to get books and things like that. So anyway, John and I go to Pasadena one day, and I'm with a friend, and I said, I like him. She said, well, tell him. I said, how can I tell him? She said, tell him. So I told him, and he said, well, I'm looking for a lady. That's how John and I got together. And then we got married. Literally within a month, we got married at the Self-Realization Fellowship. We got married, it was during Darshan time. That's how fast. I only had met him a couple of times. Darshan was April. We got married May 20th. I think it was the day May 24th. I forget which, May 20th or 24th. It had something to do with Meher that day. And years later, it had something to do with Meher. I don't know if that day she dropped her body, she died or something. 20th, yeah. Then it was the 20th we got married. So we got married. Within, not even not a month, and we're married. So I moved from one bookstore. I go from one bookstore place to the other bookstore place, and we started having Baba meetings there. And then that became the place where we had Baba meetings. And they were also having them. That became where we had meetings for a while. And then we moved to another place on Green Street, and that's where we incorporated as the Meher Baba Center of Southern California. But then years later, when they were going to tear that down, the Baba lovers opened started a place in Venice, Santa Monica. They're there for years until they found the center where it is now, on Van Ness in LA. So during that time, I also we started the. Years later, we started the LA Sahavas. All of us, a group of us, started that. So I'm now we're having meetings there. The center becomes there, and shortly after marrying John, literally within a few months, I realized I made a big mistake. We are so different. We are. A lot of times opposites attract or something, but we're not even opposites. We're just on 2 different planets on how we function. I thought, oh boy. just when I was thinking, I remembered my vision from Chicago when I was taking LSD. Remember, I was looking in the mirror and I saw all these faces, and twice everything moved aside, and I saw a man facing the ocean with a ponytail. That was John. When I went, then that's when somehow at that time I remembered. I went, okay, we've got to be together. And then I got pregnant with my daughter. We named Mehera, and then 18 months later I had my other daughter, Rabia. Well, John and I found we really, really liked each other. But we didn't love each other that way. We liked each other and loved each other as brother, sister. That's what we realized our relationship was. And we realized that we had to be married because Meher and Rabia had to be born. And had we had any time to get to know each other, it never would have happened. Baba knows things, you know. It wouldn't have. It literally would. My daughters later, years later, I mean, John is one of my best friends now. His wife, Karina, is one of my best friends. I helped them build their house here. They live 5 minutes from my daughter in Irvine. I go to dinner with them. I go stay at their house sometime. We are so close. We are brother and sister. One day when they were coming, Bauji said to me, John's coming. I said, Bauji, 100% I can say before God, John is my brother. That's what I feel for him. I love him like a brother. That's our relationship. So anyway, John and I got divorced 7 years later. When we filed, we have no idea when it becomes final. It became final the 31st of January. It was 7 years later, 1977, I think. Got married during Darshan. We got divorced during our Matithi. Isn't that interesting? I mean, and we were married 7 years. So that was totally a karmic marriage. So then I'm ready to go back to school. While we were married, I started feeling I wanted to go back to school, and I found I was getting A's to my surprise. And I wasn't a good student before. I used to not. I had some very unfortunate experience when I was young at the Catholic school. And my mother died when I was 6, and I would go to different schools. And my dad didn't have me go to first grade, and then he wanted me with my age, and then I was second grade. I never went to first grade, so I had trouble reading. I didn't know why, and I kept changing from California to. So anyway, so when I was old enough, I would start ditching school because it was not a pleasant experience for me. And when I found out about Montessori, and this is it when John and I were married, and then I had a Baba friend, and she was a Montessori teacher. She told me about Dr. Montessori. And so I read that book, Maria Montessori, Her Life and Work. Of course, then I found out later that Baba sent his blessings to a school here, and Baba, that Montessori was opening up here, and that it's a chance to work with the spirituality of children and this and that. And when I was reading it, and she was talking about the deviation of the child and how things can happen and how this can happen. And when I was reading that, I relived what happened to me. I had buried it. I literally was 10 years old. I won't talk about what happened to me. But I could smell the air. I was 10 years old again. I was reliving this. And I started sobbing and sobbing and sobbing. But I was ready. I was mature enough. And I understood. I was with Baba long enough. I had understood Montessori then. And we had opened a Montessori school, John and I. And I came to understand what happened. So I was ready to go back to school. And I started getting A's. And then anyway, I even ended up being on the dean's list. I mean, I was a good student. I became a very good student. I have a bachelor's in international business. So anyway, so I was ready to go back to school. But I only took a class here and there because I had children. so I would just take the class now and then. But then later, when John and I got divorced, I moved to Palos Verdes, and I got my junior college degree, and then I transferred to the University of New Mexico in Albuquerque. And there were a lot of Baba lovers there. Terry was there. She had now married Clive Adams, and so now she was Terry Adams. And there's a whole bunch of us that were living there. And Phyllis came out to visit us one time. We just had a big group of Baba lovers that were there. So then I moved back to California, and how did it happen? Oh, I started working for the post office. I came back to California. I finished my degree at California, University of California, Los Angeles. And so when I would get off, working for the post office, so I would get off. I worked nights because I was working days, but then I have to take my hardest classes in the morning because that's when I'm the freshest. And I saved biology for my last semester, my senior year, because it wasn't something I'd be good. I would be very, it could be difficult for me. So I went on nights so that I could, so when I got off at 9 o'clock, I immediately went to college to my classes. By the way, I would have gotten an A in that class, but at first I didn't realize I didn't know how to study in that class. So I was getting a D in the first couple of tests, and so I thought, what can I do? And so I started taping his class. And then I'd go home and I'd listen to the tape and literally write out every word. So then when I took the final, I walked out before anyone else, and I knew I had an A. And I went and told the professor, I got an A. On my final, I did. But I only got a B in the class because I had not done well in the first few ones until I figured it out. So anyway, at that time, when I finished school, my father died. He died a week after Meher died. And so I had not saved any money. I was living in an apartment with my daughters, and I had not saved any money. I'm going to school. And my father dies, but before he died, I was feeling very strongly I had to go to India. Had to go to India. And I remember I told you that I may not understand what it is, but I knew I had to go. Well, at the post office, I'd never taken any time off because I was always going to school too. So they only want you to take 2 weeks off. Now, to come to India, that's not enough time because you spend half that time traveling. So I had to talk to the postmaster to get permission to take 3 weeks off. So I go to the postmaster. This was in March because you have to do it way ahead of time. My dad's still alive. I go to the postmaster and I asked if I can have 3 weeks off because he said, well, we don't like people that take more than 2 weeks. And I said, yes, I know, but I'm going a long ways. He said, well, where are you going? I said, I'm going to India. Of course, that always, everyone, India. It's such an exotic sounding place, and it's so far away, so that's a natural reaction. India? He said, what are you going to go to India for? I said, it has to do with my relationship with God. He said, well, can't you go to the mountains? He literally meant that. Can't you go to the mountains? I said, no, I have to go to India. He said, okay. So I got my 3 weeks. Now my father dies before I go. He dies in May. This was in March. He dies in May. And I graduate 1 week later after my father dies. I graduate from college. So I completed college. I'm not married anymore. And my dad left some money. So I paid off all my bills. So I don't owe anyone anything. My younger daughter turned 18 in July. And she was going to go stay with her dad and go to college there. So my youngest one is grown, 18. She's going to go stay with her dad. And I didn't own a business anymore. And this was all happening, and boom, 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 in a matter of weeks. Now it's the 1st of August, I'm flying to India. And this was in 89. In 89. So I'm flying to India. And when I'm there, I remember one day, it's just regular pilgrimage, a little jet lag and all that. I'm sitting on the MPC, Meher Pilgrim Center in Lower Meherabad, and in 1989, and all of a sudden thoughts start coming to me. You're not married anymore. You don't own a business anymore. And I'm just sitting there. I hadn't had time. You've paid all your bills off. And I had moved into my dad's house with my older daughter. That literally put the last piece of furniture in the night before I left. Because I was just living in an apartment. You don't owe anything. Your youngest daughter's going away. She already did. She went to stay with her dad. You're not married. I'm free. The first time in my life, I'm free. And I also felt some sounds, that sound I told you I heard way back in 69. I heard that going, something inside of me going, also, I heard it inside of me. This wasn't, in 69, it was external sound. This was inside of me, but I could hear it. And then it hit me. And the feeling, it's time. It's time to come. Then it hit me like that, what Phyllis had said. One day, later in life, you're going to move to a foreign country and stay there. I went, this is later in life. This is 21 years later. And by the time I finished that pilgrimage, and I already told the Manali, no, I didn't tell anyone. I didn't know you had to tell anyone. I decided I'm going to move. That was it. It's time. I knew inside, everything's between me and Baba. It's time to move. So on my way out, I'm traveling to Pune with Heather and Adair. There was only one tea stall in those days that was halfway, and there's nothing in between. We stopped for tea, and I mentioned to them that I'm moving to India. And Heather said, oh, did you tell Mani? I said, Mani? No, why should I tell Mani? Judy, you can't move to India without Mani's permission. I can't. Oh. And I think, I'm on my way out. So I get back to the States and I tell my daughters, I'm moving to India. There's no question about it. I'm moving to India. But how to tell Mani? So I start writing and I don't know what to say. How do you tell someone that you're going to come and live there? Especially when they don't know you. I hardly even talked to Mani when I was here. I didn't hardly spend any time around the women mandali. I was up at the Samadhi, or I'd go there and I'd be in Baba's room. I was always been me and Baba. And except I've had dreams of Meher, so and experiences with Meher, that's different, because it's almost like the same. So, what do you say? And why would she believe me if I start telling her some of the things it sounds kind of crazy, why is she going to believe if I'm saying I have this experience and that? What can I say? I just started writing and I'd throw it away. Next thing I know, I'm writing like 7 pages. And I send it off. And then, and at that time, you could only get a visa for 3 months. That was it. But Christina Pearson just came back. And she said, no, if you can get permission for another 3 months. So she had just come back from Spain 6 months there. So I thought, okay, I'm going to be there 6 months. So I bought a ticket for 6 months. That's, and that's how I'm going to be there for 6 months. So I go and I'm a pilgrim. And I go talk to Mani and I tell Mani I want to live there. And she says, oh, well, okay. And I'm going to move here. But you can't just come and move here. You have to come for 6 months. It was very different in those days. You could not come, certainly couldn't stay in staff quarters right at first. She wanted you to come for 2 6-month periods. Because what happens is people come to Meherabad, and Baba wines and dines you. You're in this usually in a very wonderful, everything's taken care of for you. Your food, your clothes, you're at the Pilgrim Center, everything is taken care of. Buses here and there, everything. Well, living here is a very different picture. Things don't always work. And sometimes it's almost like Baba deliberately makes them now. The smallest thing can be the most difficult to get done. And so Mommy knew that. So she wants you, she didn't tell me that. I found that out later after living here. She wanted to make sure you have 2 trials to make sure this is really what you want to do before you come lock, stock, and barrel. And so, of course, I'm ready to move here. There's no, and I started immediately working as a receptionist at the MPC, and I started working at the trust office. The registration office was there, and I started working there as well. We're running over time. So, so I was working 6 days a week, and I had 1 day off a week, and that was Thursday. So I would go to Mary's, so I was always around Erich. That was his day. Monty wouldn't be there. So I really wasn't around the women at all. And I didn't even go to the women's arty at first, because I was working and on Tuesdays I was working in town, and Erich was there on that day, and Pat would be there, and she didn't go to the arties. And I'm working with her, so I didn't go either, but I really would go. I never thought about it. And one time Monty came in and she said, well, when they came back from arty, and she said, he went to me, she said, why don't you go? I said, Pat doesn't. That was a simple thing, But then I started feeling, okay, I'm going to go. So I started going, and then I didn't miss them. I didn't miss the arties after that. Because they were really, really, it's like Baba so much. When the women were there would be so much love. It would be, you'd bring tears to your eyes. The singing and all of that would be, it was so beautiful. So after the first 6 months, I go back, and so I'm not going to be able to earn enough money to come back right away. I'd have to get another visa. It took months to do. It was not easy. And when I get back, my daughter said to me, Mama, how can you go? How can you go in June again? How can you possibly go? You don't have a ticket. You don't have any money. You have to work. I mean, I had my debt money, but I wasn't using that. You don't have money. How can you possibly do it? And I told her, I said, this was in December when I went back. No, it was December. Yeah, December. I said, I don't know, but if Baba wants me there, it'll happen. And then, literally, within a day or two, I have frequent flyer miles. Well, I would have frequent flyer miles with the TWA or Pan Am. I don't want one of those. That's not in existence anymore. But I didn't have enough to go. I was just short, I forget, 10,000 miles or something. And I heard somehow, I called them, and I said, how can I get some miles? What can I do to get some miles so I can have enough to go to India, because I need this many miles. I think you need 40,000 or something, and I have 30 or something like that. He said, well, it's not going to be possible, blah, 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 and this and that. And then I hang up, and I'm not satisfied. I call back again. I talk to somebody else. He said, we have a special going on. Oh. If you join, it was something by the 31st of December, and this is like the 3rd week of December when I called, right? If you join, I think it was their frequent flyer club or something like that, you get a bonus of 10,000 miles. But it has to be done before the 31st. I literally got in my car and I drove to the LAX. And I went into the LAX I don't know who it was, whatever airline it was that it was then. I went and I joined them, and I said, now do I get my frequent flyer miles? Now do I have them? Am I going to have them right now so I can get a ticket to go to India? They said, yes, you have it now. And so I went home. Meher got off work. She was going to school and got off work. She was also working. I said, Meher, I've got my miles to go to India. I've got my ticket. And that's how I have my ticket. And it's really after 7 now, so I think if I'm going to continue my story, because because then I have to come for another 6 months before I move here. I think we need to stop. It's really, I haven't. There's so much to share about life here, what happens here, and Meherabad and the Mandalay. So I really think that's the beginning of my living here. I have to do another 6 months.
That's great.
All right, so we're going to stop for now.
Meher Baba ki jai.
At the moment, I see something
Yeah,
from
that
her
was
that
good.
in all this time we had meeting with different people, but honestly, I say that nobody could share such sweet stories, such style you were talking. It's so beautiful with all your gestures. I really appreciate what you did today, and I hope we video you. We make video of you.
We'll continue
and
it
our work.
another time, because I'll be leaving for the States in 2
And
weeks.
I think you should finish all. You should say all, people.
There is so,
Everybody
there's
Thank you so
there's no end to what's been
No
happening
end.
here.